news comes first. This is ABC 7 Extra.
It is Sunday, April 14th. Welcome to ABC 7 Extra. I'm Mark Ross, and it's very good to be back here at ABC 7. April is National Donate Life Month. The month aims to spread awareness about organ, eye, and tissue donation and honor those who gave the gift of life. Now, this is an awareness event that took place earlier in the week at Del Sol Medical Center. Tonight here on Extra, we explore organ donation here in El Paso. We'll speak with a representative of University Medical Center and a woman who is an organ transplant recipient. She'll share her journey and we'll tell you which organ is most needed for transplants and the simple way you can become an organ donor. Now, Friday was National Donate Life Blue and Green Day. You can see I have the scarf here with the blue and the green on it. That's part of National Donate Life Month. Joining me tonight are Chris Morales, the ICU director at University Medical Center, and Yvonne Suarez, who is an organ recipient. Chris, let's start with you. We have statistics from Donate Life America. First of all, how many people in the U.S. are waiting for an organ transplant?
To my understanding, it's a little over 100,000 people that have been waiting for organ transplant.
That is incredible, but sadly, not all of those people will benefit from an organ donation.
That is correct.
How many people roughly do you know will not have the chance to get that organ donation and will pass away?
I wouldn't be able to give you an estimate, but it definitely is quite a bit.
So around, I guess, probably about 5,000 to 6,000 people, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. What organ is most in demand for transplants?
It varies. It can be kidneys, liver, heart. There's a lot of different depending on the individual, but I would say probably liver is one of the bigger ones.
Now, most people think that organs like your kidneys or your livers are the only body parts that can be transplanted. So that's not true. I mean, just about every part of the body can be transplanted.
For the most part, yes, that is correct. Heart could be transplanted. They've been doing lungs. Part of the pancreas can be done, liver, kidneys, even parts of people's bowel. The corneas of their eyes, or even skin tissue could also be donated. So anatomical gifts they come in all shapes and sizes.
Is there an age range where the organ donor is a best fit?
Typically so, yes, but that's usually through our organ procurement agency, Southwest. They have their protocol and determination of what patients make the best fit for organ procurement.
And you're talking, of course, about Southwest Transplant Alliance,
Correct.
Who works both here in El Paso and all over the state of Texas,
Yes,
really. How many people can benefit from organ donations?
Like we said earlier, there's about 100,000 people, a little more than 100,000 people waiting for transplant. And from as far as benefit, you think of a loved one that may need transplant at some point. So, having your loved ones here for you, that's part of your support system. It goes beyond just the people that require the organs for, continued life. It's the family members as well that it impacts. So.
Okay, so on average, though, I guess around 8 people can benefit from certain transplants?
Oh, yeah. For one particular donor, I think up to 8 people can benefit from anatomical gifts from that one individual.
Okay. Tell us about the relationship that UMC has with Southwest Transplant Alliance. How does that work?
So how that works is typically if certain criteria is met that has been set by Centers Medicare. There's criteria in which we have to contact Southwest of potential for organ procurement with a particular patient. But obviously it still requires for consent and going through a process for proceeding with that process. But there's certain criteria that we evaluate on patients that would say this could be a potential candidate. We notify Southwest Transplant Alliance, and then they investigate on their end whether or not this is a patient that is suitable for organ procurement.
Okay, and Yvonne, you've had a liver transplant, correct? And you're waiting for a kidney transplant.
Correct, I'm on the list.
Okay, how long have you been on that list?
On that list, December 1st, 2023, I was accepted into the kidney transplant list. This was exactly a year from the time that I had gotten my liver transplant.
And you're just waiting for a phone call?
I am waiting for my Yes, for the phone call and for the kidney function to go below the threshold that allows me to be upgraded on the list.
Okay, and
Or prioritized.
we'll talk more with you about your path to transplant here when we come back in just a few minutes. And still ahead, we'll hear from Yvonne. She's benefited from one organ donation. She's waiting for a second one. Stay with us. You're watching ABC 7 Extra.
There are trucks, and then there's the GMC Sierra, available with the connected driving experience and the world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate. GMC Sierra. It's the truck. Or Texas residents get 1.9% APR for 72 months on select Sierra 1500 models. That's over $9,200 in average finance savings.
See your El Paso Las Cruces GMC dealers.
At Long John Silver's, you'll be hooked on our $6 shrimp baskets, whether they're fried to go to perfection or sizzling on a grill. And now get even more bang for your batter when you upgrade to Jumbo Shrimp. Make us your first mate and order ahead to skip the wait. Long John Silver's, Fish Yeah.
Watch Smart Money Thursday on ABC 7 at 4 with Myro Capital Management. You'll learn how to save money the right way and make better decisions to set you and your family up for financial success. Smart Money Thursday on ABC 7 at 4, sponsored by Myro Capital Management.
When innocent love turned into romantic love, we were there. When life allowed us to celebrate and mourn, we were there. When the occasion called for a special touch and words were just not enough, we were there. And when life itself came into the world, we were there. For all the moments that deserve the most meaningful expression, Kern Place Florist is here for you. Kern Place Florist, since 1956.
Rise and shine, El Paso. We've got news for you.
We are following multiple breaking news stories this morning. We're bringing you complete team coverage.
The focus of the investigation seems to be on that corner duplex.
With your hour-by-hour future track forecast.
We are under that ABC 7 first alert for those rain chances.
And the most up-to-date traffic track report.
Back up all the way to US 54 in the eastbound lanes. That's where I'd highly recommend taking Montana Avenue.
Tune in to Good Morning El Paso. Weekdays starting at 4:30 a.m. Only on ABC 7.
Welcome back to ABC 7 Extra. I'm Mark Ross. Tonight we're discussing organ donations as April is National Donate Life Awareness Month. Our guests tonight are Chris Morales, the ICU director at University Medical Center, and Yvonne Suarez, an El Pasoan who received the gift of life from a donated organ and is waiting for a second transplant. Yvonne, tell us your story. When did you first learn that you needed an organ transplant, and how long ago was that?
It was in about July 2022 when I got really sick, didn't really know what was going on, and it very quickly escalated for me that I needed a liver transplant. That was the only solution, the only thing for me. So that latter part of 2022, I was struggling to find an organ, to get treated and everything else. I had to fly to Dallas for my procedure, and I very quickly got it once I got to Dallas. The recovery, the going through the process of it, being away from home, that makes it a lot harder on the patient as well, because you're being challenged with your health, seeking health care, and then you're by yourself. So that is a challenge.
And you're still making trips to Dallas?
I still do make periodic trips to Dallas to see the team, and just to make sure that everything is functioning well. Okay.
I guess the question really now is, how are you feeling?
I feel very, very good. I feel very strong. I feel the research I did prior to the transplant helped me a lot as a patient, but then also having the awareness of donations, that there are people who are willing to donate. In my case, I needed the entire organ. There are situations where they can give you a partial part of the liver, and that requires a live donor, which I did have a friend who was a match and was willing to do it, but I needed the entire liver. So that's a little bit more of a wait. With the kidney, that there's the option that someone's willing to be matched up and give you a kidney or provide that for you, that's also good, but you need to be matched up, so someone has to be able to step up and say, I'm willing to be tested, I'm willing to donate, I'm willing to help somebody else live.
And Chris, she talks about people getting tested to see if they can be a donor. How does that work?
To be honest with you, that's an area that we typically don't see in the inpatient hospital side, so I really can't speak to that portion. That's usually done more in an outpatient setting.
Okay. And Yvonne, you were telling me during the break that there were other members of your family who were awaiting transplants.
Yes, so in the extended family, there was a cousin and an uncle who both had liver issues. The cousin had been on a waiting list for basically 3 years, but because of his health, he was not able to be able to receive the liver when one was available to him. He passed away shortly after I got my transplant. There was an uncle as well that got that was in need of a liver transplant, but he never even made it on the list. So I was, of the 3 family members that we have in our extended family, I was the one that was able to survive.
So what are your emotions knowing that there are so many people out there who need an organ transplant and may or may not be lucky enough to get that call?
And that's exactly right, lucky. I feel very lucky that I was able to get, you know, the organ that I needed when I needed it, and so fast. That it was a week's worth of waiting for me once I got on the list, and I flew to Dallas and I got an organ. That usually doesn't happen. It's not typical, based on my experience with my other family members, where they waited for years. And so I feel very blessed that somebody actually said, I am willing to give the gift of life. I am willing to donate.
Chris, do you have any advice for our viewers who may even be remotely considering becoming an organ donor?
I mean, obviously, in the hospital setting, we understand that organ donation is a choice that people make, and we respect every patient's choice. But if people are interested in it, every time you go to renew your driver's license, you're able to register to become a donor there. I think some people have a feeling that once they make that choice, that it's a forever thing, and there's always the chance that, you know, you have the right to be able to choose what happens to you, and so you could always change that choice later. But we see it as something that we always try to do the best that we can for our patients, being able to meet people like Yvonne and be able to see the recipients. You know, it really, we encourage as much as possible that, you know, giving another individual a second chance at life is something very much to be valued.
And I have, I've heard through some people that University Medical Center has something called the Wall of Heroes.
Yes, sir.
When it comes to organ donation. Talk about that real quick.
So when organ donation first became a little bit more prolific, was becoming something that was occurring more often, UMC started what we called a Wall of Heroes as a way to honor those that have donated organs to recipients. And so what we ended up starting was a wall that has pictures of people that have donated that serve as a memory of those people and to honor them for the gift that they were able to give. And to my understanding, it's actually the first one in the nation. It started here at University Medical Center, and it became kind of an idea that they took to other hospitals, and they say, hey, we should be able to do the same here. And it kind of went widespread, and most, not all hospitals, but some hospitals across the nation have their own similar type of recognition for their donors. All
right. When we come back, what you have to do to become an organ donor. You're watching ABC 7 Extra.
For everyone who's endured the bad seat, finally, sweet, sweet redemption. The Lexus TX, 3-row luxury that treats every seat like the best seat.
Hello, my name is Dr. Carlos Viesca with Border Pain Institute, and I would like to introduce you to the new FDA-approved Intracept procedure, which is 90 to 95% successful in treating low back pain. This revolutionary procedure is minimally invasive with a very short recovery time that will help you regain functionality and get you back to the normal activities that bring joy to your life. If you or someone you know is suffering from chronic pain, give us a call to discuss your options.
Preparing for a road trip takes a lot of planning to make sure you reach your destination. Dodds Wealth Management Group is your local financial planning firm. We are fiduciaries and obligated to act in our clients' best interest. No one knows what life changes will come, so let us help you be ready when they do. Dodds Wealth Management Group, creating, building, and preserving wealth.
Of course, the GMC Terrain offers different drive modes. What about Weekend Warrior mode? Or you don't see that every day mode? How about out of the office mode? Or even,
are you out of your mind?
Mode. Want a mode for everything? Just announce, sign and drive. Get this ultra-low mileage lease on this 2024 Terrain SLE for around $379 per month with zero due at signing.
See your El Paso Las Cruces GMC dealers.
Welcome back to ABC 7 Extra. Our topic tonight is organ donation, and our guests are Chris Morales, the ICU director at University Medical Center, and El Paso and Yvonne Suarez, who is an organ recipient and is waiting for another organ, and we'll talk about that in just a moment here. Chris, before the break, we mentioned how easy it is for people to become an organ donor, and all it takes is a check mark on a box on your driver's license form, right?
Yes, sir.
That's it.
To my understanding, yes, and to my understanding, you could also go to their website. Don't quote me on it, but I believe if you were to go to the website for Southwest Transplant Alliance, there may be all other ways of signing up as well.
Okay. If a loved one has not specified their wish to donate an organ when they pass, is there a way for a family member to say, we're going to allow you, or is that getting into too much legal mumbo jumbo?
I probably wouldn't be able to speak too much on that aspect of it, but like we said previously, as a patient or as an individual, you always have the right to choose whether or not you would like to be a donor.
And Yvonne, you were talking about how important the support system is for someone who is getting an organ transplant, and of course you said you had to go out of town for yours, so you had no family present. How does that play into you being a patient?
It's hard because you don't have that. Who do I talk to? Who do I depend on? Who's there? So most of my conversations and my kind of counseling sessions with my family members were through text or by phone. Like I was saying earlier, the doctors became my family and became my source of comfort and support because that's who was available. If you can have it done in the city that you live in, you have both the doctors as your family and your family members here. The other thing to remember is you as a patient, thinking ahead, you need to let your family members know, hey, this is what I want. If anything happens to me, I want to donate. I want to be a donor. I want to help somebody else live. So that they are aware of that conversation that you have with them, and they can make a determination if it's ever asked of them in case of an emergency.
Right. So you don't necessarily have to have that little box on your driver's license form checked out. You can just turn to your family and say, here are my wishes.
Exactly.
All right. And you said earlier you're on the list for a kidney now. Did you find out at the same time you needed the liver transplant that you also needed a kidney transplant?
No, I'm in need of a kidney now because of the liver transplant.
Okay.
So there were complications during the surgery that just taxed my body to an extent that now the kidneys are diminished. So I will need a kidney transplant to help me continue.
And you're on the list and you're waiting for the call to say, we're ready for you. We're ready for you. Come back to Dallas.
And it's all about also staying healthy, changing your mindset, changing your lifestyle, changing everything to remain as healthy as possible so that you are a good recipient for that new organ. You want to, if you get that second chance at life, you want to really hold on to it and go with it. So listening to your doctors and staying within your treatments is very important.
Chris is the ICU director at UMC. Talk about some of the instances that you see when it comes to someone who comes in who may have been in a car crash or something, and there needs to be an organ transplant. Are there steps that UMC takes to reach out to Southwest Transplant Alliance, or how does that work?
So if you're talking about patients that require a transplant at
Right.
our facility, UMC doesn't provide transplants here in El Paso. We would have to coordinate for transfer to another facility, typically, like Yvonne had said, to facility maybe in Dallas, Houston, depending on the type of organ that they're requiring, would require, that process would start. But there's kind of a lot of different factors that go into whether or not they can transfer to another facility. Yvonne kind of mentioned, the whole being a good recipient, and there's certain criteria that those facilities will evaluate.
And it's all about having a positive attitude, Yvonne, right?
Yes. That's your first step. That's your best medicine, having a good, positive attitude, having a good support system, and just believing and trusting that you are on the path to healing and keep staying on that path to healing.
And share your message again when it comes to becoming an organ donor.
It is important, it is vital. You are helping someone else live. I am very grateful to the person who donated the liver for me. I don't know who they are.
I was going to ask you if you knew who they were.
They chose to remain anonymous, and so I don't know anything other than it was a gentleman who had some sort of head injury and was not able to survive. So his organs were donated. I received his liver. But I think that's one of the loose ends I have from this experience, is that I have not been able to reach the family or reach out to them and let them know how grateful, how thankful I am that their loved one gave me life. And that's how I see it. They literally were so generous and they gave me life.
And Chris, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap things up tonight?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Okay. I want to thank both of you for coming on tonight to talk about this, how important organ donation is, and of course, how many people should consider becoming an organ donor. My thanks to both of you for being on tonight. Thank you for watching ABC 7 Extra. I'm Mark Ross. We'll see you next Sunday night.
Thank you for watching. ABC 7 News is now available on any of these streaming services, as well as the KVIA News and KVIA Weather and Traffic apps.